Are you ready?
Hi, and welcome to episode 37 of Be the Drop, a weekly podcast that investigates the art of communication, specifically storytelling, in today's digital world. I'm Amelia Veale. Today's episode is an update and take stock session, as over the past few weeks, I've started to really see some common threads and have had a couple of aha moments about the Be the Drop manifesto. My first real aha moment came about when reviewing content from my interview with the Adelaide show. And as it stems from comments made by one of the show's hosts, Steve Davis, I'm currently referring to it as the Steve effect, or alternatively, I summarise it as bloody-minded ambition. To quote Steve himself,
"It wouldn't even matter to me if there were no community around it. It is intrinsically self-sustaining."
Steve was not the first of my guests to talk around the concept of drive. Actually, all of my guests have been very driven, hardworking and passionate people. But Steve was one of the first to so bluntly articulate this. He clearly identified that to do this requires an obsessive passion, a borderline selfishness to be that first drop that goes forward with an idea, regardless of whether it will make you money, whether it offends people, or whether people will like it. In order to bring a community with you, you must have a single-minded focus and direction, or else you become difficult to follow. Whilst the waterfall analogy symbolises the bringing together of community, so too does it symbolise that it begins with just one single drop.
Finding that thing inside you that you can't not share, that drive that you've got. There's a bottomless pit of energy, of source that I can draw from, that will fire me up week in, week out. When I'm bleary-eyed and it's late hours, I will still do it. I will still edit this. I will still push it.
He goes on and says that singers and songwriters don't do focus groups. They don't plan their audience. They have something inside them that they just have to get out. Some of us are so restless inside that we have to get something out. Maybe a crowd gathers. Over time, we get to see who makes up that crowd. Then you can find out what their interests and motivations are, and it becomes a feedback loop. The depth of this aha moment really amplified when I then sat down to a hilarious interview with the boys from Raka Raka. And whilst there was lots of humour involved, they also dropped some incredible value bombs.
So we got a $250,000 offer and we turned that down because weren't going to have complete creative control of what we wanted to do. And it would become something
it's just
that we
like a
didn't
money
wanna
grab thing, which we're not interested in at all. We just want to make cool stuff.
Yeah.
And if we're not making cool stuff, there's no point to us to do it.
For Raka Raka, it's all about the content that they want to make. They do it because they love it. This again highlighted that despite the clear marketing importance of delivering something of value to your audience, when it comes to actually being the drop, to being the starting point, like starting a business, it's critical to start with doing and communicating what's important to you. And not only is it important to start with this focus, Michael and Danny reinforce that it is critical to then stay true to you.
And there'll be lots of distractions there could be that can draw you away from what you're trying to do. Just stay true to what you were doing to begin with and keep it. Of course, you'll change along the way.
Yeah, what the is this?
And for that,
Really philosophical
Be the
answer that
drop.
doesn't make sense.
My most recent guest, magician, entrepreneur and speaker Vin Jang, put this another way. He talked a lot about mastery.
I didn't understand why would people be paid tens of thousands of dollars an hour? It's like a magic trick, can't be real. But then I just remembered that it's just, if you spend more time on it than anybody would reasonably expect, you achieve mastery. And mastery is something that I think is extremely rare. And to achieve mastery, like you said, you have to not listen to the other people.
To master something, you have to have absolute clarity with what you want.
The problem is people don't have that clarity. They don't know what they want. you will stop yourself if you don't have that clarity. And you're right, you're your own biggest enemy. So you have to look within to find the answers that you want at the end of the day to give you that clarity. But once you have it, Amelia, nothing stops you. It doesn't matter what my mum and dad said. It didn't matter what my ex-partners said. When you have that clarity, it's like a bloodhound that's got the scent now. Nothing is going to stop you.
As much as mastery is about clarity, it is also about continual improvement. It's an evolutionary process.
The Japanese have a word for it. They call it kaizen, which is, in other words, the continuous and relentless pursuit of perfection, but knowing that perfection isn't attainable.
And for this, Vin says, you'll need patience.
The best thing about today's world is that everybody's not patient, which is great, because it just means that if you focus on being patient, you'll win. You'll win the marathon because everyone's giving up.
This is about the motivation and desires of the single drop, its identity. A community or waterfall is built when other people self-identify with your identity. This comes back to what Michael from the Wheeler Centre said.
Because we're a new cultural institution. I mean, we didn't exist and then we did. And existence wasn't something that came about because government was responding to this massive outcry of people saying, please give us a centre for books, writing and ideas. It was one of those government creations where no one really knew exactly what it was. No one had exactly asked for it. And so we had to define ourselves, justify our existence, and then get a community to self-identify as caring about our success or failure. And so that idea about what it was to build a community was kind of mission number one.
We are intensely tribal beings and we self-select what communities support our sense of identity. The reinforcement of these statements by guests reminds me of the common modern adage, you do you. When you focus on being your own thing, inevitably there will be others that will want to join you. However niche your market, for example, James Degg, the bath blogger. By indulging his own interest, he discovered his community.
And so out of nowhere, I had this reputation as someone who was an expert on bathing.
So whilst Be The Drop has a strong element of discovering and celebrating how to build success through bringing community together, my interviews have very clearly identified that in order to motivate community to come with you, you must first be very clear on your own direction, that you must stay committed to this, even if there were no community there with you. This is not something new. Simon Sinek summarizes it very well in his content about knowing your why. But the interesting thing to me is the balance required between how far you go in sticking to your why and at what point and how to share this with your customers or community. These insights will reshape my questions over the next series of interviews, and I look forward to how this will evolve the podcast. I am very interested in your thoughts on this, so if you have an opinion on the points that I've summarized in this episode, please let me know. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Be The Drop.